God dag, Anita. Thank you so much for being here today. Before going into the topics of culture diplomacy, we would like to ask you about your personal experiences in arts and culture. So you've been in Singapore for nearly 4 years. Could you share some of the best arts and culture experiences in Singapore?
Certainly, and thank you for having me, Sigrid. And before we start, also a big congratulations to the Norwegian Cultural Center. I would so have hoped that I could have been part of one of the events that you have planned coming up. Unfortunately, as we all know, due to COVID, these things had to be postponed. But I do wish you all the best of luck when you do have the chance to have some of these performances staged and artists visit. But yes, you're right, I've been in Singapore for almost 4 years, and it is a fabulous place, as we all know, also when it comes to art and culture. I have been thoroughly impressed with the museums here. I think this is where it started off, visiting of course, the Asian Civilizations Museum, the National Gallery, the National Museum, the Peranakan Museum, heritage centers. It is an amazing experience, and I do hope that all foreigners who come, all visitors to Singapore really would take the time to do that. We've also had some incredible experiences with cultural exchange between Norway and Singapore take place here, like the Nidarosdomen boys and men's choir and other artists coming here, having a performance in the Esplanade or the Victoria Concert Hall. So that has been very rewarding as well.
Great, thank you. Have you noticed any similarities between Singapore and Norway in the art scene?
Well, I think the first thing you notice perhaps between Singapore and Norway are the differences. We are far north, we're sparsely populated, we have lots of dramatic nature and a completely different climate. But yes, having said that, I think what I do sense in Singapore is a similarity to us when it comes to the ability to be very straightforward, no nonsense, and direct in a sense. We see this as well, I think, in the art and cultural scene. There are many similarities, many ways that the audience engages in a similar way in Singapore and Norway. One of the things that we do notice right now, of course, is that the fantastic museum Singapore has will soon be matched. In Norway, we will have a new Munch museum opening in October this year, and next year our new National Gallery, National Museum will open. So I think those will be fantastic institutions to visit, and I think then you will also have the opportunity to hopefully to have more exchanges between Singapore and Norway.
Thank you. If you were to advise our people in Norway on what to look forward to in Singapore, what would it be?
There are so many things. I mean, you will perhaps start by saying that you will be coming to a very vibrant, dynamic metropolis, truly multicultural and truly global. So whatever you like, whatever your interests are, you will find it here to high level or with a terrific quality. It goes for activities as well as interests, I think, whether it's sports and leisure, food and drinks, culture and the arts. You will find so many things going on in Singapore. I would really advise my countrymen and women, and I do that regularly, to also explore a bit off the beaten track. I started by commending Singapore for some of Singapore's museums and say the bigger central institutions, and they are fantastic and must be explored. But there are such a richness to this place. It's not a large country, but it's a dense country. It's not only dense with people, it's really dense with experiences. So personally, I've liked being around Singapore, both the old heritage areas like Chinatown, like say Kalang area, Geylang, but also around all Singapore's parks, park connectors, green areas, and also all the so-called heartlands, the HDB areas and communities dotted around Singapore. They are a truly interesting way of living. I think they are, in a sense, this is where we will be after COVID. You will not necessarily want to have your life or to base your life around downtowns in cities. You will want to have these local communities where you can get everything you need where you live. And I think Singapore in many ways is one of the best examples of a truly livable city, a city that is where architecture and design has been used very thoughtfully to create these living spaces. So I would advise Norwegians to venture out of the beaten track and really walk around and appreciate what Singapore has to offer.
Thank you for those great advices. To our Singaporean audience, what's the best advice that you can give when visiting Norway?
Well, I think it really depends on the interest and also, frankly, of the time of year that you visit. Norway has incredible nature, as I'm sure everyone here know. It has a wide variety of offerings. You can do extreme sports, you can go mountaineering, you can visit the fjords and the mountains, but you can also find these wonderful cultural places, both in the cities, like I mentioned, some of our bigger museums, but also a range of galleries and cultural institutions and smaller festivals dotted around the country. And many of them will do their utmost to give you this experience of mixing nature and culture. And I think some of these offerings are really worthwhile also for a Singaporean audience. So look up festivals, look up some of these incredibly interesting architectural additions to Norway, and try and experience something which will be perhaps a bit adventurous, but also very different from the setting you experience things in here in Singapore.
Now, let's go on to the topic of cultural diplomacy. Could you mention any projects during your career where cultural diplomacy has played an important role?
Thank you. Yes, I think cultural diplomacy and the cultural relations between countries is extremely important. We work with that. We are part of that every day. But of course, as you say, there are some projects that might be bigger than the day-to-day work. I was once part of a state visit by the royals, His Majesty the King, Her Majesty the Queen, to the US. And that sort of visit, especially when the royals are involved, is often also used to promote and give visibility to art and culture. On this tour, there were several artists and musicians, different forms of of expressions that were part of the delegation and also part of the program. Of course, Norway and the US go back centuries. In fact, Norway was the country with the second largest share of our population emigrating to the Americas from the 1820s onwards. So there are many, many links to build on. I think we see a similar, although different relationship between Norway and Russia, especially up north. We have a long history of trade and cultural ties to such an extent that a separate language was developed to take care of this trade, which happened from the 17th century onward, the Pomor trade. And we can still see that there's a certain affinity between the peoples up north. And this is also now part of, and has been part of, Norway's relationship with Russia since the fall of the Soviet Union and borders were opened and we could have people-to-people contact and cultural ties. So I think both of those examples show that when you have these relations that go back, that are wide, you will want to continue to build on them if you can. More, perhaps a different example, more in modern times, or actually current times. This year at the Venice Biennale, the Norwegian pavilion will feature Sami artists, indigenous Sami artists. And being a Sami myself, I'm very proud of this fact. I really look forward to seeing what the Norwegian presentation or pavilion will look like. And I hope that this opportunity to be there, to be visible, to feel that you're recognized by your country will also give greater confidence and pride to the Sami nation. I think some of these examples are perhaps, they show what can be achieved, but we shouldn't forget that we at all times we try and promote links between people, and including within the cultural and art sphere.
Thank you so much. How would you describe the cultural relations or collaborations between Singapore and Norway today?
I would say that there's a foundation there, but we could do much more. And I do hope to see these relations develop further. We both have fantastic academies, institutions of the arts, both government support culture and the arts. So I hope to see a greater awareness, perhaps, in both countries of the other, and thereby also a greater interest in collaborating. I do hope that this is what we will see going forward. Frankly speaking, I think it's possible to strengthen the collaboration in all areas. We have a lot to share. Looking at the cultural scene in Norway, it's very vibrant across the board, and there are many similarities to what is going on in Singapore. For example, during the last European Film Festival, where we screened one movie together with all the other European countries, one of the really heartening experiences, I thought, was to see the short movies made by students at Gian Polytechnic at the Film Academy there. They brought out really interesting, fascinating stories from Singapore. I've also, enjoyed the literature of Singapore, the graphic novels and comic books, music, watercolors. I mean, imagine if we could have a collaborative project on visual arts. That would be fantastic. But all of these would be things that I would hope to see. But it's important to realize that the interest for this will have to come from the cultural institutions themselves, from the artists themselves. We will certainly help. The Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs will help, but the interest must come from the sector itself.
Yeah, I do agree. It's a large spectre of arts here in Singapore that is growing and thriving. And it's very similar to those we have in Norway. So I think the cultural collaboration here is big.
Yeah, I think so too. I do hope to see even more concrete results of that going forward, where I think we can try and kickstart this. For example, is by making sure that we are facilitating a cooperation between, for example, the academies within the educational sector. That is where we have a mandate already. It's something that we are always working on in different fields. I do hope to see some of that come true in the future.
Do you believe a more maybe structured plan before artists come from Norway and to Singapore, so you can be together plan how it's going to be, how the cultural diplomacy is going to form, if you know what I mean?
I think it's an interesting point. So again, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has as a strong priority to promote Norwegian culture, Norwegian artists abroad. It's part of Norwegian foreign policy. It's part of our society, part of our identity, our democracy, to want to see the cultural life and the arts flourish. These are the areas often where new ideas come up, new ways of thinking, new ways of looking at things, thinking outside the box. And this is something we encourage. And we do believe that for the long-term political relations as well between Norway and other countries, the arts, the cultural relations are essential. They are in many ways the foundation. They are what will make relations flourish over time. So I think when you talk about, for example, a high-level visit by the royals, yes, then you will plan exactly how a stay, for example, or a visit by an artist will be. But oftentimes we will depend on the professional networks and institutions and actors within the creative sector, creative economy come together, agree on something, and we will try and make use of that opportunity when it arises. I think we can be better at that, but that is where we are at the moment at the embassy.
Thank you for that. According to my research, Norwegian artists are quite welcoming towards an increased collaboration with the embassies in the context of cultural diplomacy. What advantages do you see with the strengthened collaboration between artists, cultural institutions, and the embassies today?
That's an excellent question, a great question. In Norway, the cooperation between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Culture, and the cultural sector itself, organized through a network, Norwegian Arts Abroad Network, is kind of the golden triangle that we depend on. And we, from the government side, will have programs, support schemes, grants, travel grants, supporting residencies, but it will be the cultural institutions who decide exactly what to do, what sector, which country to go to, which project to get involved in. So again, that's the foundation. But if we can raise the awareness here in Singapore of Norwegian cultural workers, artists, I hope to see more applications through these networks and more interest in Norway for coming here to collaborate with Singaporean artists and institutions. And when that happens, we can help facilitate, we can promote whatever is going on. We can also open doors in the sense that we might make use of their stay here to to do something else more to promote Norwegian culture and art, and then we will invite our contacts. We will try and have Singaporeans at a high level from the political sphere, business sphere, cultural sphere, come together to experience these projects. So that is where I see our role primarily.
Right. Thank you. In a more digital world, is there still a need to have a physical presence of a culture center today?
I think looking at how the world has changed with COVID, it's striking, isn't it, how much we can do digitally, how much is available digitally, also in the cultural sphere. Of course, some of this predated COVID. You had the streaming services, both for music and TV shows and films. And now you see even more, virtual tours at galleries or museums, virtual performances, live performances being offered online. So you can really sit anywhere in the world and have a window into the culture and the cultural expressions of other countries. But even with all that, I think nothing can replace the value of in-person, face-to-face contact. I think for us as an audience, it's indispensable. It's very different to see something as fantastic as it might be on screen and in real life. I participated at the Singapore Art Week this January, and that was the first time in a year that I'd seen a cultural performance live right in front of us, and it was a thrilling experience, absolutely stunning, because it had been so long and the contrast was so big. But I think also for the artists themselves, collaborating with others virtually is not the same as meeting people, creating new ideas, talking, having that inspiration that comes from visiting other places, seeing other people. So the short answer is that even in a digital world, we still need the physical connections, the face-to-face meetings. And I think the Norwegian Cultural Center has a great role to play in that regard.
Thank you. As a musician myself, I can verify that it's very important to have the live sphere still. How can arts and culture be beneficial in terms of leadership?
Well, that's a great question. I think art and culture is really important for everyone. It develops our personalities, our ability to think creatively. It also helps them in problem solving. It develops our perspectives, our ability to think outside the box. And I think in that respect, it's very important for children to have the opportunity to explore art and music, to immerse themselves in it, to be part of it, to express themselves in a free way. And I think that ability and that way of opening up your mind is important to keep also when you become an adult. And this is important, I think, for all of us, but not least for leaders, to give us this ability to take a broader look and to also allow our mind to wander a bit more freely. Some will call it lateral thinking, where you are not consciously focusing on each and every topic, but where you allow your mind to wander. I think art creates that space for many people, and in that sense is hugely important.
Thank you, Anita, for your insightful and interesting answers. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, and best of luck with the Cultural Center.